This video is brought to you by AKS.
We'll go for an exercise on pronouns. We've already discussed the rules on pronouns. We'll go for an exercise on that. We'll go for some fill in the blank questions first. Then we'll start with spotting that and sentence improvement. Come to the first one. Understand the meaning of a sentence. Right? Dash of these two boys may stand first. The options are either and anyone. Right? Now we have discussed this rule. Any and both. Any and both can be used. Any and none can be used only when there are more than two entities. Whereas either, neither, and both can be used only when there are two entities. That's the rule we discussed on pronouns. Come to the statement now. Dash of these two boys may stand first. Now in this sentence, we're talking only about two entities. So we cannot use anyone here. It has to be either. So either of these two boys may stand first. Now instead of two boys, if it is three boys, then must be anyone. Right? So any and none can be used only when there are more than two entities. Either, neither, and both can be used only when there are two entities. Right. Come to next one. Dash of the two servants told the truth. The options are neither and none. The same rule. In this sentence, we are talking only about two entities, so it cannot be none. It must be neither. Neither of the two servants told the truth. Now, either is used in a positive sense, whereas neither is used in a negative sense. That's the only difference. Come to the next one. Dash of the five teams may win. In this sentence, we are talking about five entities. As five entities are there in this statement, it cannot be either, it must be any. Any of the five teams may win. That means only one team wins, but five entities are there, so we cannot go for either, we have to use any. Any of the five teams may win. Come to next one. We should all love dash. We should all love dash. The options are one another and each other. You know when to use between and when to use among. Between can be used only when there are two entities. Among can be used only when there are more than two entities. If I say, I have distributed the cake between two friends, right? Because only two entities are there. I have distributed the cake among three friends because three entities are there. When to use each other and when to use one another? If I say, the two friends met dash at the function. The three friends met dash at the function. The two friends met each other at the function. The three friends met one another at the function. So between and each other can be used only when there are two entities. Whereas among and one another can be used only when there are more than two entities. Come to the statement now. We should all love dash. All in the sense, it means there are more than two entities. As there are more than two entities, we cannot go for each other. It must be one another. We should all love one another because we have more than two entities here. So, each other, either, neither, and both can be used only in the case of two entities, whereas one another, any and none can be used only when there are more than two entities. Right. So we should all love one another. Come to next. The couple spoke to dash earnestly. Now we have discussed the concept of pronoun antecedent. Every pronoun must refer to a noun before it. A singular pronoun can refer only to a singular noun and a plural pronoun can refer only to a plural noun. That is the concept of pronoun antecedent. Right? Couple in the sense, we have two entities here. Right? The couple spoke to dash earnestly. Himself is a singular pronoun. The subject of a sentence here is couple. That means two are there, so we cannot use himself, it must be themselves. Right? The couple spoke to themselves earnestly. Right? Now, SCLF and SCLVES are termed as compound personal pronouns. Now, there's nothing in English like SCLFS. SCLFS is a wrong usage. SCLF or SCLVES. SCLF is added to singular pronouns and SCLVES is added to plural pronouns. That is a rule, right? Now here, couple means two are there. So based on that, himself is eliminated. It must be themselves. The couple spoke to, the couple spoke to themselves earnestly, right? Come to the next. Some people think only of dash. Some people in the sense, the subject of this sentence is plural. Now, as we discussed, when you go for a sentence, first identify the subject in the sentence. Everything else in the sentence depends on the subject. If the subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb and the pronoun must also be plural. That's a rule, right? Some people in the sense, the subject of this sentence is plural. So, verb and the pronoun must also be plural. Based on that, himself is eliminated. It must be themselves. Some people think only of themselves. Come on next. The people of Bihar are more laborious than dash of Mumbai. Understand the meaning of a sentence, right? The meaning of this sentence is, the people of Bihar are more laborious than the people of Mumbai. That's the meaning, right? The people of Bihar are more laborious than the people of Mumbai is the meaning of the sentence. So this blank must be, this blank stands for the noun people. The people of Bihar are more laborious than the people of Mumbai. So this blank stands for the noun people. But if I say the people of Bihar are more laborious than the people of Mumbai, the sentence becomes grammatically wrong because of redundancy. The noun people is getting used twice. We'll use a noun once, and then when we refer to the noun, we go for a pronoun. That is what a pronoun is for. So this blank must be filled with a pronoun, and that pronoun stands for the noun people. People is a plural noun, so this blank must be filled with a plural pronoun. Based on that, that is eliminated, it must be those. This and that are singular pronouns, these and those are plural pronouns. A singular pronoun can refer only to a singular noun, and a plural pronoun can refer only to a plural noun. Based on that, that is eliminated, it must be those. So correct statement must be, the people of Bihar are more laborious than those of Mumbai. That means the people of Mumbai, right? So two entities getting compared in this sentence are, one entity is the people of Bihar and the other entity is the people of Mumbai. Come on next. One must be attentive to dash studies. The subject of the sentence here is one. Now I must be attentive to my studies. You must be attentive to your studies. He must be attentive to his studies. She must be attentive to her studies. We must be attentive to our studies. They must be attentive to their studies. One must be attentive to one's studies, right? O-N-E apostrophes. So if the subject of a sentence is one, now only if the subject of a sentence is one, we can use ones, O-N-E apostrophes, or else we cannot use ones. So subject in this sentence is one, so it must be, one must be attentive to one's studies. Getting it? Come on next. This is a beggar dash stole my suitcase, right? Now, who, that and whom are relative pronouns. We discussed a rule regarding relative pronouns. Every relative pronoun refers to a noun that comes immediately before it. This blank must be filled with a relative pronoun because options here are relative pronouns. And the noun that comes immediately before the relative pronoun is beggar. Beggar is a person. So, who, whom and that can be used to refer to persons. Who and whom are anyway used to refer to persons. That can be used to refer to persons, non-living things like objects, animals, birds, everything in fact, right? Now, understand the meaning. This is a beggar dash stole my suitcase. This blank refers to the beggar, and according to this sentence, the action related to the beggar is stole my suitcase. That means the beggar stole my suitcase. Now, if the doer of the action, if the noun or pronoun is acting as a doer of the action, that means the subject, we have to use who, because who is referring to the subject. If the noun or the pronoun is acting as a receiver means the object, we have to use whom. So if it is a subject, doer, it must be who. If it is the object, receiver, it must be whom. Clear? Now, the blank stands for the beggar, and as per this sentence, the action related to the beggar is, the beggar stole my suitcase. The beggar stole my suitcase means the beggar did the action, right? Doer means subject, so it cannot be whom, it must be who. Based on that, whom is eliminated. Now we have two options left, who and that. We have discussed this rule. That is used when something is very specific, like the only beggar, the greatest person, the same beggar, etc. Right? In this case, we are not referring to something that is very specific, so it cannot be that actually, it must be who. But that is also correct. Right? Who and that can be used, but when we have options like who and that, both are differentiated, then we have to think about this rule. That can be used only when something is very specific, like the only one, the same one, etc. So here it is not very specific. Based on that, if you have an option between who and that, we have to go for who only. But both are correct, right? So we have only two options here. The first option is who or that. The other option is whom. Right? We'll come across questions where we have differentiate between who and that. So here in this case, this is a beggar who stole my suitcase. Come on, next one. I dash am your teacher will teach you. Here we have the options are that and who. That is differentiated from who here. We are not talking about something that is very specific here, like the only, the same, or a superlative degree adjective is not here. So in this case, we can eliminate that and we can go for the answer is who. I, who am your teacher, will teach you. Now, this blank refers to I. And according to the sentence, the action related to I is will teach you. So meaning of this sentence is I will teach you. I will teach you means I am going to do the action. So I am going to be the doer. Doer means a subject. Subject means it must be who. It cannot be whom. So if there is an option like whom here, we can just eliminate whom here in this sentence. So it must be who. I, who am your teacher, will teach you. Then, who is a relative pronoun? Every relative pronoun refers to a noun that comes immediately before it and the verb that comes immediately after it. So we need to focus on the noun that comes immediately before a relative pronoun and the verb that comes immediately after it. That noun and that verb must be in agreement with each other. Singular noun, singular verb, plural noun, plural verb. Come to the same statement once again. The noun or pronoun does not matter. A pronoun stands for a noun. The pronoun that comes immediately before who is I. And the verb that comes immediately after who is am. Right. With I, we use am. We cannot use is or are with I. With I, it must be am. So I, who am your teacher, will teach you is completely correct. Getting it? Come on, next one. Only he dash bears the burden knows its weight. Right? The options are that and who. Both are correct actually. Only he. So action related to he is knows the weight. That means he is doing the action, subject, it can be who. But in this sentence, we have only. That means it is very specific here. And as it is very specific, when we have an option between that and who, we have to go for that. So in this context, even though both are correct answers, our task is to find out the better option or the best option. Right? In this context, who is eliminated? It must be that. So one, only he that bears the burden knows its weight. That is a relative pronoun. So we need to focus on the noun that comes immediately before it, the verb that comes immediately after it. The pronoun that comes immediately before that is he, singular. The verb that comes immediately after that is bears, singular, because of the S. That concept is also completely fine. So this sentence is grammatically correct. Only he that bears the burden knows its weight. Clear? Come on, next. He is one of the greatest leaders. He is one of the greatest leaders that dash have ever lived. Greatest is a superlative degree adjective. That means in this case, we're talking about something or someone that is very specific. As we're talking about someone who is very specific, right? In this case, when we compare who and that, even though both are correct answers, the better option here becomes that. So who is eliminated? He is one of the greatest leaders that have ever lived. So meaning of this sentence is that many greatest leaders lived. And among the greatest leaders that lived, he is just one among them. That is the meaning. That is a relative pronoun. The noun that comes immediately before that is leaders, plural. So verb that comes immediately after that must also be plural. The verb that comes immediately after that is have, which is a plural verb. So he is one of the greatest leaders that have ever lived is grammatically fine. Come next one. Between you and dash, I do not believe him. Options are I and me. I is a subjective pronoun, whereas me is an objective pronoun. We have discussed the rules regarding when to use subjective pronouns and when to use objective pronouns. We have discussed 3 rules in the subjective form and 3 rules in the objective form, right? Come to the statement. Between you and dash, I do not believe him. Between is a preposition. The third rule that we discussed in the objective form, any pronoun that comes after preposition must be in the objective form. Now in this sentence, between is a preposition. In this sentence, we have 2 pronouns coming after the preposition. One is you and the other one is blank. The blank. So any pronoun that comes after preposition must be in the objective form. So in this case, we have 2 pronouns coming after the preposition. So both the pronouns must be in the objective form. Based on that, I is eliminated because I is subjective. The answer here must be me. Between you and me, I do not believe him. Between him and her, between them and us, between you and me, between you and him, between him and her, etc. So the pronouns that come after preposition must be in the objective, right? The next one. Neha and dash were present in the class. Understand the meaning of the sentence. Neha and dash were present in the class. Options are I and me. I is subjective, me is objective. Neha and dash, according to the sentence, were present in the class. That means Neha and dash did the action according to the sentence. Means Neha and the blank according to the sentence did the action means they were the doers. Doer means subjective. Subjective pronoun must be in the subjective form. So Neha and I were present in the class. One reason. One more reason. This sentence is in the active voice, right? The very first rule that we discussed in the subjective form, if a sentence is in the active voice, subject, verb, object, Neha and dash are the subjects here, verb present is the verb here, class is the object. So this sentence is in the order object, verb, subject, active voice. The very first rule in the subjective form, when a sentence is in the active voice, and if the pronoun is acting as a doer in that sentence, that particular pronoun must be in the subjective form. So this sentence is in the active voice, and in this sentence the pronoun is acting as a doer, so it must be in the objective form. It must be in the subjective form, not objective, subjective form. The very first rule is subjective form. So sentence is in the active voice, and in this statement the pronoun is acting as a subject, the doer. It must be in the subjective form. I is subjective. So Neha and I were present in the class. Clear? Come on next. Nobody but dash deserved the prize. Options are she and her. She is subjective, her is objective. She is a subjective pronoun, her is an objective pronoun. Nobody but dash deserved the prize. The action related to this blank is deserved the prize. That means the blank deserved the prize. Deserving is an action done by us, not received by us, right? Now, winning is an action done by us. I win the first prize means I put a lot of effort, I do a lot of hard work and I win it. Winning is an action done by us. Deserving is also an action done by us, not received by us. So action related to this blank is deserve the prize. That means the blank deserved the prize. So blank is acting as a doer here. Doer means subject. Subject must be in the subjective form. So it must be she. Nobody but she deserved the prize. One reason. If you're not getting the help of one rule, as I said, forget about it. Think about some other rules. This sentence is in the active voice. Nobody but dash deserved the prize. This blank is a subject here. Deserved is a verb here. The price is the object here. So this sentence is in the order subject, verb, object. There is active voice. And in this case, the pronoun is acting as a subject here, doer. The very first rule in the subjective form. The sentence is in the active voice and the pronoun is acting as a doer here. So that pronoun must be in the subjective form. She is subjective. So nobody but she deserved the prize. Sounds incorrect but correct. Come on, next one. He is taller than dash, right? He is taller than dash. Taller is a comparative degree adjective. ER word. ER words and more words are termed as comparative degree adjectives. And we use a comparative degree adjective only when we draw a comparison between two entities. We have two entities here. One is he and the other one is a blank. We have discussed this rule in the case of pronouns, right? ER words or more words, comparative degree adjectives, will be followed by than. So taller than is correct. And if it is than, the pronoun must be in the subjective form, right? ER words are more words, comparative degree adjectives will be followed by than, and if it is than, the pronoun must be in the subjective form. So taller is an ER word followed by than, and if it is than, the pronoun must be in the subjective form. I is subjective, so he is taller than I is grammatically correct. He is taller than me sounds correct, but it is wrong. He is taller than I is completely fine. Now we should never go for an option like, we should never go for a reason like a sentence sounds correct or sounds incorrect. We don't want that reason. Because a sentence that sounds correct may be incorrect, a sentence that sounds incorrect may be correct. So he is taller than I. Come on, next one. Let dash who can save us from this drowning, save us from drowning. The options are he and him. We have gone for this rule as well. Let will be followed by an objective pronoun. Let will be followed by an objective pronoun. Like, let me sit here. Me is an objective pronoun. Let him go there. Him is objective pronoun. Let her come. Her is objective. Let them play. Them is objective. Let us go. Us is objective. The best example is let apostrophe s. Let apostrophe s. Let's is a short form of let us, right? And us is an objective pronoun. So pronoun that comes after let must be in the objective form. Let him, let her, let them, let us, let me, let him, etc. So in this case, let dash who can save us from drowning. This blank must be filled with an objective pronoun. Based on that, he is eliminated and so must be him. He is subjective, whereas him is objective. So let him who can save us from drowning. It's drowning. Clear? Come on, next one. By dash was this novel written? Question mark. This sentence is in the passive voice. Right? Simple reason. We can get the help of the structures we discussed on tenses in both active voice and passive voice. By dash was this novel written? Was written is was plus V3. And was plus V3 is a structure of simple past in the passive voice. Right? Was plus V3 is a structure of simple past in the passive voice. And in the passive voice, the pronoun that appears is the objective pronoun. Based on that, who is eliminated and so must be whom. Who is subjective, whereas whom is objective. By whom was this novel written? Passive voice, pronoun must be whom. That is one reason. Another reason is, by is a preposition. The third rule we discussed in the objective form of pronouns. Any pronoun that comes after preposition must be in the objective form. By is a preposition, and in this statement, the pronoun is coming after the preposition, so it must be in the objective form. So who is eliminated? Answer must be whom. By whom was this novel? Clear? Come to the next question. We'll go for something on spotting the errors. Right. One part of the sentence, if a part of the sentence contains the error, that must be answer. If the sentence is completely fine, means no grammatical mistake, the answer must be no error. Right. The chairman and the managing director were asked to sink his differences and settle the issues amicably. Amicably means like in a friendly manner, peacefully. Right? We have to solve our differences or conflicts in a friendly manner, a peaceful manner. The chairman and the managing director. The chairman and the managing director. The rule regarding and. Now first identify the subject in the sentence because everything else in the sentence depends on the subject. The chairman and the managing director. The rule regarding and we discussed on subject-verb agreement. When and connects to similar entities, the subject is singular. When and connects to different entities, the subject is plural. Right. The chairman and the managing director in the sense, the is used twice. The first the refers to chairman and the second the refers to managing director. So in this sentence, we have two persons. One person is the chairman, the other person is the managing director. The rule regarding and. So here we are talking about two persons. Two persons means the subject of the sentence is plural. And if the subject is plural, the verb and the pronoun must also be plural. The chairman and the managing director were asked, were is a plural verb. So till here, there is no error. Were asked to sing his differences. His is a singular pronoun. The subject is plural, the verb and the pronoun must also be plural. So in this case, it cannot be his, that is the error. It must be their differences and settle the issues amicably. Right? So error in this sentence is in part C. Right? The chairman and the managing director were asked to sing their differences and settle the issues amicably. Now, if I change the sentence this way, the chairman and managing director. The chairman and managing director means there is only one person here and the same person is playing two roles. The same person is chairman as well as managing director. That means the subject is singular, only one person. The verb and the pronoun must also be singular. Then the error must be in part B. Was asked to sing his differences, but the rest of the sentence will not fit actually. Right? But so in the given sentence, answer must be part C. The chairman and the managing director were asked to sing their differences and settle the issues amicably. Come on next. The correspondent and principal. The correspondent and principal have given their consent to conduct sports competitions on the eve of Independence Day. The correspondent and principal means, how many persons are here? There's only one person here because the is used only once. The refers to correspondent and principal. That means there's only one person here playing two roles. The same person is correspondent as well as principal. So subject here is singular. The verb and the pronoun must also be singular. The correspondent and principal have given, the subject is singular, verb must also be singular. Have is a plural pronoun. It cannot be have, it must be has. That is one error. We have one more error in the same part. Has given their consent. Their is a plural pronoun. As the subject is singular, the pronoun must also be singular. So it cannot be their, it must be his or the correspondent and principal has given his or her consent to conduct sports competitions on the eve of Independence Day. So error is in part B and we have two errors in this part. One error is regarding the verb and the other error is regarding the pronoun. So correct statement must be the correspondent and principal has given his or her consent, doesn't matter, to conduct sports competitions on the eve of Independence. Getting it? Come on next. This is the same dog. This is the same dog which barked at my son but fortunately did not bite him. This is the same dog which. I told you when we talk about something that is very specific, the relative pronoun that we need to use is that. We have to go for the relative pronoun that. So as we're talking about the same dog, very specific dog, it cannot be which, it must be that. This is the same dog that barked at my son, but fortunately did not bite him. So error in this statement is in part B. Now, but is a contrast indicator. Every contrast indicator must connect one positive idea and one negative idea. The idea before but is, this is the same dog that barked at my son, negative. The idea after but is, fortunately did not bite him, positive. Did not bite is positively charged. Anyway, fortunately is a positive word. Unfortunately is a negative word. Did not bite him is positive because of double negation. When two negative terms come together, the meaning becomes positive. Did not is negative, bite is also negative, so did not bite becomes positive because of double negation. Getting it? Come on next one. It took myself 4 months to convince them to take this step. It took myself is a wrong usage. It must be it took me 4 months to convince them to take this step. Right? It took me 4 months, it took him 4 months, it took her 4 months, it took us 4 months, it took them 4 months, it took you 4 months, etc. Right? So it took me 4 months to convince them to take this step. Therein this statement is in part A. Getting it? Come on next. You cannot change people, but you can definitely change you, right? You cannot change people, but you can definitely change you. If I say, you can definitely change you, that's a wrong usage. I can definitely change me is wrong. She can definitely change her is wrong. We can definitely change us is wrong. They can definitely change them is wrong. I can definitely change myself. You can definitely change yourself. They can definitely change themselves. She can change herself. He can change himself. We can change ourselves, etc. Right? You can definitely change you is wrong. You can definitely change yourself or yourselves. Both are correct. Yourself is a correct usage. Yourselves is also a correct usage. If I'm referring to one person, it must be yourself. If I'm referring to more than one, it must be yourselves. In this sentence, it can be yourself or yourselves. If I'm referring to one person here, you, it must be yourself. More than one, yourselves. Now here in this case, yourself becomes a reflexive pronoun. I have told you the difference between reflexive pronouns and emphatic pronouns. When the action done by the subject reflects on the subject, it is termed as reflexive. That means when the doer and the receiver is the same person, it's called reflexive. If I say, I changed myself, I did the action, I do the action, I receive the action. It becomes a reflexive pronoun. You change yourself. You do the action, you receive the action. She changes herself. She does the action, she receives the action. They change themselves. They do the action, they receive the action. When the doer and the receiver is the same person, it becomes a reflexive pronoun, right? So you cannot change people, but you can change yourself or yourselves. Both are fine. Error is in part D. But is a contrast indicator. The same rule. Must connect one positive idea and one negative idea. The idea before but is you cannot change people, negative. The idea after but is you can definitely change yourself or yourselves, positive action. The concept of contrast indicators is completely fine, right? Come to next. None of the two sisters has paid her tuition fees. I told you, none can be used only when there are more than two entities. In this sentence, we are talking only about two sisters. We have only two entities here, so we cannot go for none. That is error. None of the two sisters has paid her tuition fees. The sentence is negatively charged. It cannot be none, it must be neither. Either is positively charged, neither is negatively charged. The sentence itself is negative. Neither of the two sisters has paid her tuition fees. Now, neither of the two sisters means the subject of this sentence is singular. The rule that we discussed on subject-verb agreement, when either comes without or when neither comes without nor, the subject of the sentence is singular. And if the subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. Come to the same statement once again. Neither of the two sisters is a correct usage. In this sentence, neither is there nor is not there. So subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. Neither of the two sisters has is a singular pronoun, has paid her tuition fees. Has is a singular verb, has paid her tuition fees. Her is a singular pronoun, subject is singular, verb is singular, pronoun is also singular. This statement now is completely correct. So neither of the two sisters has paid her tuition fees. Getting it? Next one. Any one of the two sisters is dominated by her husband. Right? Any one of the two sisters is dominated by her husband. Any one can be used only when there are more than two entities. We have only two entities here. So error is in part A. In this case also error is in part A. It must be neither of the two sisters is dominated by husband. Completely fine. Either of the two sisters is dominated by husband is also completely fine. Right? Only thing is one sentence is negatively charged, other sentence is positively charged. Neither of the two sisters, neither is there nor is not there. Subject is singular. The verb and the pronoun must also be singular. The verb in this sentence is singular. The pronoun in this sentence is her, singular. That is completely fine. The error is in part A. Getting it? The next one. He could not meet their boss at the office. The subject in the sentence is singular. The pronoun must also be singular. The pronoun here is their, which is a plural pronoun. We need a singular pronoun here. The subject is he, so pronoun here must be his. He could not meet his boss at the office. Therein this sentence is in part C. Then, could not meet. It's always could plus V1 plural. Will, shall, would, can, could, may, might, must, should, have to, need to, ought to, has to, had to, do, does, did. All these verbs, auxiliary verbs plus V1 plural, that is a rule. So could not meet, instead of could, it's could not, couldn't. Meet is V1 plural because no S, no ES, no IES. So could not meet is could plus V1 plural. That concept is also completely fine. Therein this sentence is in part C. So correct statement must be, he could not meet his boss at the office. Fine? Come to the next statement. Each of the members has their own opinion about it. Each of the members, each is an indefinite pronoun. I gave a list of indefinite pronouns while discussing subject of agreement. Each, everyone, everybody, everything, someone, somebody, something, anyone, anybody, anything, no one, nobody, nothing, none. All these are termed as indefinite pronouns. Whenever you find an indefinite pronoun in a sentence, no other rule applies there. Conclude that the subject of the sentence is singular. That means the indefinite pronoun tells us that the subject is singular, and if the subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. Each of the members has singular subject, singular verb. So there's no error in part A or B. Right? Each of the members has their own opinion about it. There is a plural pronoun. The subject is singular, the pronoun must also be singular, so it must be his or her own opinion about it. Right? Each of the members has his or her own opinion about it. Singular subject, singular verb, singular pronoun. There is in part C. Next one. Either the engineer or his mechanics failed in his duty. Either the engineer or his mechanics. The rule that we discussed in the case of subject verb agreement, either or, neither nor, not only but also. The rule says give importance only to the second subject. If the second subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. If the second subject is plural, the verb and the pronoun must also be plural. That's the rule. Either or, neither nor, not only but also, focus only on the second subject. Either the engineer or his mechanics. In this statement, we have two entities. One is the engineer, other one is his mechanics. And the relationship between the two entities is shown using either or, so we need to focus only on the second subject. Now, his mechanics means the engineer's mechanics. Engineer is a singular noun. His is a singular pronoun referring to the singular noun engineer. That is completely fine. So either or is there. We need to focus only on the second subject. The second subject here is his mechanics, plural. Right? The second subject here is his mechanics, plural. His mechanics failed in his duty. His is a singular pronoun. The exact subject in this sentence is mechanics, plural. So pronoun must also be plural. So it cannot be his, it must be their duty. THEIR. Either the engineer or his mechanics failed in their duty. There in this statement is in part C. This is part C. Getting it? Next one. This is the only one of his comments that deserve our attention. The only one in the sense, the subject here is very specific, right? It's something very specific. So the relative pronoun that we have to use is that. So this is completely fine, right? This is the only one of his comments that deserve our attention. I gave you this rule as an exception while discussing subject of agreement, right? He is one of the teachers who teach well. He is one of the teachers who teach well. That means many teachers teach well. Among the teachers who teach well, he is just one among them. There is an exception in the case of that rule when the word only comes in the sentence. When the word only comes in the sentence, there is an exception, right? Come to the statement once again. This is the only one of his comments means, how many comments are we talking about in this sentence? In this sentence, we are talking only about one comment. Only one comment in the sense, the subject is singular, the verb and the pronoun must also be singular. This is only one of his comments that deserve our attention is wrong. Deserve is a plural verb. We require a singular verb here because of the exception with the word only. So correct statement here must be, this is the only one of his comments that deserves our attention. There is in part D, right? If I remove the word only, if I'm removing the word only, this is one of his comments that deserve our attention. Completely fine. That means many of his comments deserve our attention, and among the comments that deserve attention, there is just one among them. But as the word only is there, we are just talking only about one comment, the exception that we discussed. So this is the only one of his comments that deserves our attention. There is in part D. Got it? The next one. I will take with me whosoever you choose. Right? Understand the meaning of the statement. I will take with me whosoever you choose. Right? That means you will choose a person, and the person whom you choose, I'll take with me. That's the meaning. Right? You will choose a person, and the person whom you choose, I'll take with me. Right? Fine. I will take with me dash you choose. This blank stands for the person you are going to choose. This blank stands for the person you are going to choose means this blank stands for the person that is going to do the action or receive the action. You are choosing a person. It means you are doing the action. You are choosing a person means that person is receiving the action because you are choosing him. So this blank stands for the person you are going to choose. So this blank stands for the person that is gonna receive the action. The receiver. Receiver means object. Object means we cannot use who, it must be whom. The rule we discussed regarding the usage of who and whom. So in this case, it cannot be whosoever, it must be whomsoever. I will take with me whomsoever you choose. There in this statement is in part C. Getting it? I will take with me whomsoever you choose. You're going to choose a person. This blank stands a person you're going to choose. So this blank stands a person that is going to receive the action. Right? Becomes the object. Object must of course be whom. It can never be who. So I will take with me whomsoever you choose. There is in part C. Getting it?
This video is brought to you by AKS.